Welcome to a world of mystery, heartbreak, and hope as we dive into the hauntingly beautiful movie, The Lovely Bones. The movie begins with a snow globe featuring a penguin inside. Susie, a young girl, feels concerned about the lonely penguin, but her father, Jack, reassures her that the penguin is enjoying life. On her 14th birthday, Susie receives a camera from her parents, fulfilling her dream of becoming a wildlife photographer. She captures countless moments to preserve memories. During a family trip to a large scrap yard, where discarded items are stored, Susie meets a girl named Ruth Connors. Ruth seems to have a unique sensitivity to certain things that others can't perceive. However, something more significant occurs when Susie's younger brother, Buckley, chokes while they're at the playground. Despite being unable to drive, Susie rushes him to the hospital, ultimately saving his life. Her quick thinking earns her the admiration of her family and a prediction from her Granny Lynn of a long and content life. Susie went to the mall with her family and spotted her crush, Ray. Her grandmother noticed her admiring him from afar and encouraged Susie to take a step and talk to him, but Susie hesitated. Susie's neighbor, a middle-aged man named Mr. Harvey, had developed an unsettling interest in her. While Susie was taking a picture of flowers with her parents, Mr. Harvey accidentally disrupted her shot. However, this incident left a lasting impression on Mr. Harvey, and he couldn't stop thinking about Susie. He began to hatch a disturbing plan to trap her. During this time, Susie's father taught her the intricate art of crafting ships inside bottles. He hoped that Susie would inherit his collection of these unique creations. In the shadows, Mr. Harvey was diligently working on his sinister plan. Her mother, Abigail, expressed frustration when Susie used up all her film rolls for her camera. Developing these photos would be costly, but her caring father suggested a compromise of developing one roll each month. One day before heading to school, Abigail gave Susie a homemade pom-pom hat, which Susie didn't particularly like, but wore when she met her sister Lindsay. Unbeknownst to them, someone was observing them from a window. At school, Susie interacted with Ray, her crush, for the first time. A strong connection developed between them as Ray complimented Susie's beauty. Their eagerly anticipated first kiss was interrupted by a dispute between Ruth and a teacher over Ruth's artwork. Nevertheless, Ray invited Susie to meet him in the park the following Saturday at 10. Susie found herself in the field where she encountered Mr. Harvey. He invited her to come with him and see something special he had created. Initially, Susie declined his offer, but eventually he managed to lure her. Meanwhile, back at home, Susie's family was waiting for her at the dining table. Her mother, Abigail, grew increasingly worried as Susie was always punctual. Deep underground, a sense of trepidation began to take hold of Susie, prompting her to excuse herself. Mr. Harvey's demeanor suddenly shifted, demanding respect from Susie as if he were an authority figure. He insisted that she stay, assuring her that he wouldn't cause her any harm. However, he then forcibly offered her a drink, which raised Susie's fears. She tried to escape, but Harvey violently pulled her back. She kicked him in the face and ran away. Ruth found the note from Susie that fell from her book earlier. As Susie's family grew increasingly worried when she didn't return home, her mother decided to call the police for help. Simultaneously, her father went into town to search for her. While in town, Susie spotted her father on the street and called out to him, desperately trying to get his attention. However, he couldn't see or hear her. Frantically, Susie made her way back to her home, but to her dismay, she couldn't find her family. She could only hear her mother talking to the police officer as she reached the front door. In a moment of desperation, she entered a brightly illuminated space, not knowing what she would find inside. Susie discovers a figure submerged in a bathtub, surrounded by mud-coated items. As she spots her charm bracelet on the faucet and reaches out to retrieve it, the figure emerges, revealing itself to be Harvey. In terror, she screams, realizing that she now exists in a liminal space, neither alive on Earth nor ascended to heaven. The following day, the police initiated a search for Susie and found her blood-covered woolen cap, which her mother had knitted for her. The officer named Sederman sadly handed the cap to her parents. Meanwhile, Harvey managed to destroy all the evidence of the murder before the police arrived at his home. He successfully eluded suspicion by overpowering a police officer and remained off the list of suspects. Susie opened her eyes to find herself in a beautiful forest. On a bench, she discovered a note that Ray had written for her. It was a heartfelt poem. As she looked around, she spotted Ray in a mall, looking sad. Ruth approached him and handed him a note that she had found near the field. She reassured Ray that Susie wasn't entirely gone and that she was somehow still present. As Susie attempted to run towards Ray, just then she heard a girl's voice named Holly. Holly encouraged Susie to keep moving forward and not to look back. Susie asked Holly if they were in heaven, but Holly explained that they hadn't reached heaven yet. Holly goes on to reveal that she, along with 6 other girls, were victims of Harvey's murderous acts. She learns that her own mortal remains are concealed in a large safe in Harvey's basement. Determined and resolute in her quest for justice, Susie makes a solemn vow to ensure that Harvey pays for his heinous crimes. Susie realized that she was in the liminal space between life and death. Holly led Susie to a lush green tree, and marching toward it would lead her to eternal life. However, Susie wasn't ready to go there yet. She kept looking back, and as she did, the leaves of the tree began to fall. Susie started to run, and eventually reached the seashore, where she saw glass bottles with ships inside, but they were falling apart, symbolizing the fragility of her connection to the world of the living. In the aftermath of their shared experiences, Susie's father, grief-stricken and seeking a connection to his daughter, smashed every bottle in his collection that Susie had so admired. In response, Susie made her presence felt to her father, offering him a sense of her existence beyond the mortal realm. In her heavenly realm, Susie and Holly found joy in doing all the things they had been unable to experience in their earthly lives. Susie happily recounted, "I was alive in my own perfect world." Susie's younger brother, determined to keep his sister's memory alive, told his father that Susie hadn't truly gone. He explained that Susie had come to him in a dream. Susie's father, honoring their agreement, began developing 1 film roll per month, diligently collecting the names of suspects and their whereabouts. He continued reaching out to the police, refusing to give up on his quest for justice. Their grandmother, Grandma Lynn, came to their house in an attempt to improve the situation, but inadvertently made things worse. Susie's mother, Abigail, passed near her room but couldn't summon the courage to enter. Lindsay, Susie's sister, was walking her dog when the dog began barking at Harvey. Harvey's actions took a disturbing turn as he began to observe Lindsay from his window, suggesting that his predatory desires were resurfacing, creating an ominous and unsettling atmosphere. Susie's brother also told Grandma Lynn that Susie wasn't truly gone. She existed in the in-between, the realm between life and death, which brought solace to their grieving family. Over time, Harvey's sinister urges resurfaced, leading him to follow 2 young individuals into a cornfield, where he voyeuristically observed them making love. Susie's mother, unable to cope with the overwhelming grief of losing her daughter, made the difficult decision to leave their house behind. She ventured far away and found solace in working with orchids. In an unexpected turn of events, Lindsay, who had previously been skeptical about love, found herself experiencing it firsthand. She had her first kiss, discovering a connection she had never believed in before. As Susie observed these lovers kissing, she couldn't help but reflect on her own unfulfilled desires. She had never had the chance to live in such moments or become intimate with Ray. Harvey's twisted focus now shifts to Lindsay, whom he sees as his next potential victim. He meticulously begins planning his trap, exploring all possible scenarios to ensnare Lindsay. Meanwhile, Jack remains unwavering in his determination to uncover the truth about Susie's disappearance. His relentless search leads him to a significant clue within one of Susie's final photos. In this image, a flower captures Harvey's figure subtly reflected in it. While standing in his garden, gazing at the withered flowers that Susie had photographed, Jack witnesses one of the blooms miraculously coming to life. This inexplicable event is visible only to him, a spectral message from Susie pointing towards Harvey as her killer. Jack's suspicions intensify when he observes Harvey constructing a wooden structure outside his house, unaware that it is intended to be a trap for Lindsay. Despite his convictions, Detective Fenneman dismisses Jack's accusations due to the lack of concrete evidence, advising him to move on. Undeterred by the skepticism of the authorities, Jack decides to confront Harvey directly. Armed with a baseball bat, he follows Harvey to a cornfield, where a tragic misidentification results in a violent altercation with another couple. As a consequence, Jack is severely beaten and ends up in the hospital, leaving Susie to watch helplessly, deeply lamenting her father's condition. Susie, torn between letting her father go and seeking justice, enters the house near the lighthouse. There, she has a vision of every girl or child Harvey had harmed. It becomes apparent that Harvey had victimized numerous young girls in different states, including Holly. As Susie explores the house, she stumbles upon a safe where Harvey has concealed some of his dark secrets. He taped some of Susie's hair with her picture in a notebook. Meanwhile, Lindsay, Susie's sister, observes Harvey driving away from his house. Harvey sensed someone's presence in the house and ran to catch them. Lindsay escaped through the window. Harvey ran towards her to catch her, but luckily, she managed to escape. Back home, Lindsay encounters Abigail, who has returned to the family after leaving her job. Lindsay informs everyone about the evidence she found in Harvey's house. Meanwhile, Harvey hastily packs his belongings, prepares to flee, and attempts to dispose of the safe containing Susie's remains at a landfill site. In the spectral realm, Susie prepares to ascend to heaven with the other victims. Before she leaves, she briefly inhabits Ruth's body to meet Ray for one final time. Recognizing Susie within Ruth, Ray fulfills her long-held wish to share a kiss with him, giving Susie her first and only romantic encounter. Harvey successfully disposes of the safe with Susie's remains in a sinkhole and moves to a new town, intending to continue his criminal activities. However, as he approaches a young girl, a falling icicle startles him, causing him to lose his balance and fall into a ravine. He died there instantly. Susie's mother finally manages to enter her room and finds the piece she has been searching for. Susie tells her that she is waiting for her to come. Susie's family receives the closure they need. The movie ends here,